Hello folks and friends, and welcome to the factory. Today's doll is another commission. Like usual, I do most of the doll prep off camera. I rerouted this girl with platinum yarn, and I added bits of dark blue yarn in the middle, and I did the ice blue ombre with pastel and alcohol. I have a video on doll preparation and another on how to color yarn the way I did. Both links will be in the description box below. Here's the drawing my client sent me as a reference. She's an amazing artist. I highly encourage you to go see what she can do on Instagram. I'll leave her links in the description box as well. So here, I'm starting things a little differently today. I'll be combining a Lagoona Blue Monster High doll head with an Ever After Eye body. I will not only need to paint the head to match her new skin tone, but I will also have to make her long elf hairs with epoxy sculpt. As to not risk damaging all of it, I figured I would blush the body first, and I'll put the head back on before starting to work on it. Before starting the blushing process, using soft pastels, the body has been sanded with fine grit sandpaper and primed with Mr. Super Clear Sealant. Then it's a very straightforward contouring job for the most part, at least for the first two layers. After it's done, I add a lot of pink in some areas, namely the arms, chest, thighs and feet, all to match the drawing's design. When I am satisfied with the body, I take my Pearl X micro powder glitter and I dust it anywhere I feel like adding it. This doll is meant to be super sparkly and shiny, and this is not something I'm used to do usually, but I decided to give it my all regardless, and honestly, I am living for it. Though micro glitter is not the only thing this girl has going for her. After layering the Pearl X powders for a few layers, I started adding some shiny goodies to her body, including gems and chunkier glitter, which I applied with matte Mod Podge, though I did use a stronger tacky glue for the gemstones. In case you wonder, the pencil I use here to pick up the gems is just one that I dipped in the wax from a candle. It works like a charm really, so if you need something like that in your life, give it a go. This character really has such an interesting design. It was a lot of fun to do it. It felt somewhat a bit Final Fantasy-ish to me, and I discovered after completing the doll that the commissioner is a fan, especially a fan of Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. I had not played this one, sadly, but I'm still playing Final Fantasy XIV online. Anyone around here also plays? So yeah, we moved on to the face-up. The ears were sculpted off epoxy sculpt, and I used tint acrylic paint to give everything its base color. Then the doll was prepped with Mr. Super Clear Sealant like usual. At this stage I am mostly working on color matching and laying the base shadows using my soft pastels. I thought I had filmed how I pierced the elf ears, but apparently not, so what I did was to stick needles in them while they were curing, and after the waiting time was done, I carefully removed them. You want to wiggle them and rotate them a bit before the click ears though, to make sure the needles won't get stuck so bad you risk breaking the ears when removing them. So back at the face. You can barely see the sketch of the eyes I made because of my camera, but I assure you, it was there. Faint, but there. This is why, to make sure I don't cover the lines, that I went in with the watercolor pencil after the first layer of blushing. I usually start with lighter, more muted color, and I work my way to darker and more vibrant pigments. with this girl, you see me working with the pencils on one eye first. I define the creases and also the waterline. And then I start working on her irises, and for that I will use blues, pinks and purples. Like usual, I work in layers with the intensity building up as I lay more sealant and work over the details more and more. There's always a limit on how much you can put at once, so I take my time. Don't forget to let each layer of MSC dry well in between. That's usually about 20 to 30 minutes. So yeah, those face-ups take a lot of time, but it's definitely worth the pain. So after doing both eyes, I'm just making sure the blush is like I want it to be and that the shading is doing it. I am using similar colors as I used on the body, mixing in purples and pink for a more pastel touch. You might have also noticed that she doesn't have eyebrows. Well, she doesn't yet. She's going to get some really pale ones, and I'm going to paint these at the end with some white acrylic paint. But right now it's on to deepening some colors, defining details, and adding pops of highlights here and there. That chunkier white pencil I'm using here is my trusty Derwent white pastel pencil, and these days it's definitely my best friend. I do own the same pencil in black, but I use it extremely sparingly. Time to draw the lashes with a sharp pencil. And then I add the moon on her forehead, followed by the marks on her cheeks. And just like that, right there, she kinda reminds me of a character from the anime Inuyasha, you know, Seishomaru. It's another anime I have not watched, and you'll excuse my lack of geek culture, but I thought it was a cute trivia. Okay, so now that most of the work is done, I can start adding micro glitter to her face. And I mean a lot, and a lot of it sandwiched between layers of MSC. After that's dealt with, I go with diluted white acrylic to add the fine details in the eyes, on the lips, and define those eyebrows I mentioned earlier. I followed with a touch of black, of course, and I used metallic blue on the cheeks lines and on the moon. I was very impatient to remove the doll from her mummy costume, and she looks really good, like... I was really happy with the result. As followed, I started to work on her hair, and she has an asymmetric cut and I wanted to thin some of the sections at the front. The plastic wrap here is to hold her hair down. It's a very effective way to tame yarn hair. You could add a spritz of hairspray before putting the plastic on it too, then you just had to leave it overnight. Here I'm just using a bit of heat to shape some wave, but really loose waves. Then after that was done, it was decided that more glitter was needed, so yeah, I added more shinies and more gems too. Now on to clothes, which is still the most challenging part for me. To make it work, I broke the outfits in a couple of steps, and the first thing I did here was to make her a purple bodysuit. It's made in forgiving stretchy fabric, and I lined the top with a white strip and added a stitch in the middle to create the bust line. For the dangly white parts, for lack of better words, I used ribbon, and I was thinking of using strips of fabric at first, but my client preferred the rigidity the ribbon was giving, so I went with this. Yeah, well, I'm bilingual but not perfect, so excuse my English. To complement the ribbon, they are sheer parts of the outfit, and in the original art they are white, but I also had a very light pink on hand, so I decided to give it a try. Now it's all but a matter of stitching everything on the base piece in a way that won't compromise the stretch. I was, after all, counting on that stretch to make the piece removable. I decided to add the sub-gems at the spot where everything was meeting up at the bust line, and I settled on the steel gemstone with a small golden moon and a star. Looking good! With that in place, I can work on the skirt and the belt. I decided to go for a matching light pink, and at first I wanted to use a plastic Monster High belt and repurpose it, but it proved to be too tight and too rigid. So here, I am hemming the skirt and taking my time to iron the hemlines with my trusty flat iron. This is a very simple step, but it makes a world of a difference. Small things like that is what makes us get better in the long run, in my opinion. I'm really trying to polish those, rough edges of mine. I said it in the past and I say it again, most of the time when it comes to doll clothes, I just wiggle them. I had almost no sewing experience prior to start customizing 2 years ago, and you can definitely learn things on the go as you try and try again. Here I'm just trying to show you an ironed hem versus one that was not. Just disregard the cat hair. My baby is leaving his DNA absolutely everywhere. At the end, I gathered the skirt's fabric and I affixed it with a strip of white fabric, and it was stitches at some key points to make sure it would stay where it needs to be. Next, okay, now let me explain. Long story short, the fabric I ordered for the boots wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I wanted thin, shiny pleather, and instead I received some thick holographic fabric-ish thing. But here I have good faith. I still decided to use a spare color and try to sew in a prototype. I mean, I have to try at least, right? 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 Yeah, no. At this point I was a bit frustrated, I was running out of time and sanity. I considered using another thick faux leather I had at home, which are from an old cosplay my girlfriend took apart, but again was too thick. And this is where I discovered this! This is the belt of a fake faux leather light coat that I got from a friend with donations of fabric. It's not the right color, but that's okay, paint exists. Fortunately, I still had my prototypes of holographic stuff, and I swear I'll find a use for that thing to help me construct the real boots. Pinned down like that on a stand-in, they look good. So what's left was to stitch them directly on the real doll. Once nice and secured, I mixed the light pink with some white, magenta and purple, and I watered it down before applying about 5 or 6 coats to each legs. I did it like that to avoid building texture or building too thick of a coat. I figured it will help with durability in the long run too. Then, as the finishing touch on the boots, after protecting them with Mod Podge of course, I added, you guessed it, more glitter. Then the very last thing I added was to give her a choker. It is made with strips of faux suede, and on top of it I glued a simple gemstone. I'm using a tiny amount of super glue to hold it in place. And that, folks and friends, completes this custom. Meet Myrrania. So, what do you think? I personally am very proud of her. Please leave me your thoughts in the comments below. If you have not already, please like this video and consider subscribing to my channel as it really helps me a lot. In the meantime, stay safe.